Hello, I'm Amy, a typical college student with a story that still haunts me at times. To understand how things went awry, let's go back to when it started. At 14, I lost my dad, and my sister was only 9. It happened so suddenly. One moment, he was on his way home from work. The next, we received a call about an accident. A drunk driver had run a red light and crashed into him. He held on for 3 days in the hospital, but his injuries were too severe. After he passed, Mom was completely shattered. I remember her in my dad's parents' living room, tears flowing as she told them, "I'll never marry again. There will never be another man like John." My grandparents, my dad's parents, were incredible throughout it all. They let us stay in their home and made sure we had everything we needed. Mom didn't have to work as they sent her money every month. However, that's when things started to change with Mom. It was subtle initially, but soon became undeniable how differently she treated me and my sister. For instance, during school shopping, my sister would get 5 new outfits while I was told to make do with the previous year's clothes. Or at dinner, my sister received the larger piece of chicken or the last cookie. Christmas was the worst. My sister would get a pile of presents, and I'd get 1 or 2 things. "Mom, can I join the school band?" I asked, eager to learn the flute. "Oh, honey, we just can't afford instrument rental right now," she said. Yet, the very next week, when my sister expressed her interest in dance classes, Mom signed her up right away. "Of course, sweetie. We need to nurture your talents." With simple things like homework, Mom would drop everything to help my sister and tell me to figure it out myself. If we both achieved something at school, my sister would get ice cream for AB while my straight A's barely got a good job. Oddly, I adjusted to it, perhaps because my sister was so unlike Mom. She'd share her new things with me or defend me when she could. That made it bearable, knowing even if Mom played favorites, my sister didn't. Despite everything, we stayed close. I loved watching her dance, and she listened to me play the inexpensive plastic recorder I bought since I couldn't join the band. We were a team, no matter what Mom did or said. I was 16 when my sister turned 11, and everything changed again. What began as routine blood work during a checkup became our worst fear. Sarah was diagnosed with kidney failure. I recall sitting in the sterile hospital waiting room as the doctor explained everything to Mom. Words like chronic kidney disease, treatment options, and long-term care plans felt like they were underwater. Sarah, my lively sister who loved to dance and brought joy to others, was suddenly a patient. The diagnosis brought Sarah and me even closer. While Mom researched treatments and spoke with doctors, I stayed by Sarah during appointments, playing games and making up stories to distract her. We laughed at the hospital food and made plans for when she got better. Mom seldom noticed my presence. She was absorbed in Sarah's treatment discussions, often forgetting I was there. When she did acknowledge me, it was usually to fetch something for Sarah or tell me to be quieter. But I understood. Sarah was ill. She needed more attention. Before I knew it, I was 18 and graduating high school. My grades earned me a partial scholarship to an out-of-state college. Grandma and Grandpa again offered to cover the rest of my tuition and expenses. Mom made it to the ceremony late because Sarah had an appointment that morning. She didn't stay for pictures, leaving quickly for another appointment with Sarah. Still, I didn't blame her. Sarah's health was paramount. College was like entering a new world. Suddenly, I was far from family drama, making new friends, taking engaging classes, and feeling like I could breathe. I called Sarah and my grandparents regularly, sharing stories about my classes and campus life. While Sarah told me about her experiences at home, Grandma and Grandpa kept me informed about everything happening, as Mom seldom called. When she did, it was mostly to update me on Sarah's medical tests or remind me to contact my sister more often. She never asked about my studies or how I was doing, but I had grown accustomed to that. I was in the middle of my junior year when everything fell apart. Just after midnight, my phone rang with Mom's number glowing on the screen. My heart sank. She never called this late. "Amy." Her voice was raw and hysterical. "Sarah's in the hospital. Her kidneys have completely failed, and she's on hemodialysis." I heard her sob through the phone. You need to come home now. The next morning blurred by with emails to professors and frantic packing. I secured a leave of absence and booked a train ticket home. Watching the scenery fly by, my thoughts were solely on Sarah lying in that hospital bed. At the train station, Mom paced nervously, her appearance showing she hadn't slept for days. Messy hair, wrinkled clothes, dark circles. The moment she saw me, she grabbed my arm, pulling me towards the parking lot. The drive was filled with Mom's continuous talk about Sarah's condition, how pale she was, her weight loss, her struggle to eat because of nausea, and the bruises left by needles. Each detail pierced me like a knife. "She's so weak, Amy," Mom kept repeating, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. "My baby is suffering so much. Hemodialysis keeps her alive. But it's not a cure. She needs a real kidney." As we pulled into the driveway, Mom suddenly fell silent, turning the engine off but not exiting the car. When she faced me, her expression shifted from worry to something harsher. "You can save her," she said with a commanding tone. "You must give her your kidney." I was stunned, not by the suggestion, as I had considered being a donor, but by her demanding tone, as if my kidney was hers to claim. "Mom," I said cautiously, "what about the risks? What would happen to my health if I—" She interrupted with a harsh laugh. "Your health. Sarah's life is more important." Her words felt like a physical blow. I could barely think as I fled into the house, tears streaming down my face. Locking myself in my old bedroom, I cried into my pillow all night, keeping my sobs silent so Mom wouldn't hear and start shouting again. My mind spun. Did I even have a choice? What if I refused? Would Mom ever forgive me? The next morning, Mom sat calmly at the kitchen table, drinking coffee as if nothing happened. "We need to get you tested to see if you're a suitable donor," she stated matter-of-factly. "I'll call the hospital today." Clutching my coffee mug tightly, I tried to remain steady. "Mom, I haven't decided yet about donating my kidney," I said quietly. The silence broke quickly as Mom slammed her mug down, spilling coffee. "You haven't decided? What is there to decide? Your sister is dying." She stood up, her chair scraping the floor. "Mom, please," I began. "Don't mom me," she shouted, pacing angrily. "You're selfish. Do you want to let your sister die for attention? Murder her because you won't help." The breaking dish in the sink made me jump. Shaking and overwhelmed, I retreated to my room, struggling to keep it together. As the distress consumed me, I grabbed my suitcase and crammed a few more things inside from my dresser, while my mom kept yelling from below, "You get back here." We're not finished with this conversation. But I was finished. I dashed down the stairs, past my furious mother, and bolted out the front door. Her voice trailed behind me, accusing me of selfishness, of abandoning my sister, of being a terrible daughter. I didn't stop until her voice faded away. My grandparents' house was just a short distance away. Grandma opened the door before I'd even knocked. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" she asked, enveloping me in a hug as I broke down in tears. Grandpa appeared, concern etched on his face. As they guided me to their snug living room where we'd created so many cherished memories as a family. Grandma made me her special hot chocolate, not the instant kind, but rich with real melted chocolate and warm milk, just like when I was a child. With tears streaming down my face and hands trembling around the warm mug, I shared everything. Mom's insistence on me donating my kidney to my sister, her harsh words when I said I needed more time. Grandpa reassured me softly, mentioning how they were aware of Sarah's illness and had been supporting her medical expenses. "But this," he shook his head gently. Grandma squeezed my hand. "This has to be your decision, dear. Not even your mother can demand such a thing. It's your body, your choice." My phone buzzed incessantly in my pocket, Mom's name flashing repeatedly on the screen with messages like, "Get tested immediately. Your sister needs you. Stop being so selfish." I switched off my phone, overwhelmed. The following morning, as we sat down to breakfast, we heard the front door burst open. Like a storm, Mom charged into the dining room, her hair disheveled, eyes blazing, and demanded, You're coming home now. We're going to the hospital to get you tested.
Grandma.
Putting her arm protectively around me, countered. She is your daughter too. You can't force her to give up a kidney, even for Sarah's sake. Oh, you bet I can. Mom's voice shrieked with new intensity. She has to do it. If not, she turned to me, her gaze sharp and piercing. If you won't do this, you're dead to me. You won't be my daughter anymore. Before anyone could respond, she stormed out, slamming the door with such force that Grandma's china cabinet clattered. The sound of the car screeching away lingered in the stark silence. Later that day, I went to the hospital to visit Sarah. A nurse handed me a surgical mask, instructing me to sanitize my hands thoroughly before leading me into Sarah's room. Entering the sterile hospital room felt like entering another realm. The rhythmic beep of the monitors and the myriad of tubes surrounding Sarah created a surreal atmosphere. She seemed so tiny in that vast hospital bed, yet her face lit up when she saw me. Amy, she greeted softly, her voice frail but her smile radiant. You came. I gently took a seat by her bedside, careful not to disturb the web of tubes. Of course I came, I replied with a small smile. Someone's got to make sure you're not driving the nurses insane. We chatted for a while, our conversation flitting from her favorite nurse to my college courses, and even the dreadful hospital food. Eventually, her demeanor turned grave. Mom told me. She confided quietly about the pressure to be her donor. My throat constricted. Sarah, no. But she squeezed my hand weakly. Listen, I would never ask you to do this. It must be your decision. Amy, absolutely yours. Even as she lay weak and hooked up to machines, she was still thinking of my feelings, while Mom ranted about my supposed selfishness. Seeing Sarah so brave and so unwell, I finally made up my mind. I want to get tested, I declared, not due to Mom's coercion but out of a genuine desire to help if I could. When Mom discovered I had opted for testing, it was as if the recent turmoil dissolved into the past. She embraced me, tears in her eyes. You're doing the right thing, Amy. The right thing. I moved back from my grandparents' refuge to our home. Over the following weeks, I underwent a series of tests, blood draws, tissue matching, psychological evaluations, the full gamut. Mom's demeanor flipped, suddenly sweet and attentive, preparing my favorite dishes and inquiring about my day. It felt as though I finally had the mother I'd always wished for, yet oddly, that made the situation even more surreal. After what felt like an eternity of waiting, the doctor finally summoned us to discuss the results. Mom and I sat in his office, the desk cluttered with papers and test results between us. He adjusted his glasses uneasily. I'm afraid I have some unexpected news, he began, riffling through the documents. According to these tests, Amy cannot be a donor for Sarah. Mom leaned in, confused.
What?
Why not? We can conduct more tests. It's not about additional testing, the doctor gently interrupted. It's the degree of kinship between Amy and Sarah. It's insufficient for a transplant. While trying to process his words, the room seemed to spin around me. I don't understand, I said slowly. What do you mean by degree of kinship? Could you clarify? The doctor cleared his throat, glancing between Mom and me. The genetic markers reveal that you and Sarah are not full siblings. You share only one biological parent. I turned to Mom, who had paled significantly, her hands gripping the chair's arms so tightly her knuckles turned white. Mom, I whispered. What's he saying? How is this possible? She jumped up so fast her chair nearly toppled over. This doesn't matter. None of this matters. We'll find another donor. Before we could respond, she dashed out of the office, leaving the door to slam behind her. After a pause, the doctor spoke again, his voice soft. Miss Mitchell, the tests indicate that while you and Sarah share the same mother, you have different fathers. Your sister's biological father is not the same man who raised you. The realization hit like a blow. Different fathers. Mom had an affair, conceived Sarah while married to my father. The way home was a haze. I don't even remember getting into my car or navigating familiar streets. Once home, I saw Mom at the kitchen table with a bottle of cognac and an almost empty glass. "We need to talk," I said, voice trembling. "About your affair, about betraying Dad." She took another swig, not even meeting my gaze. "It's none of your business. Besides, it doesn't matter now. You're useless. You can't even help your sister." I stared in disbelief. "Dad was my father, and you cheated. You had Sarah with someone else. This is your fault. If Sarah shared my father, I could have helped her." The loud slap startled me. My cheek stung where Mom had struck me. I stood frozen, watching her storm upstairs. Moments later, she returned, suitcase in hand, and threw it at my feet.
"Get out!"
she yelled, the cognac slurring her words. "I never loved you. It should have been you, not my precious Sarah." I stood there, hand on my burning cheek, absorbing her accusations. Not loved. Should have been me. The words I dreaded hearing spoken aloud. Without a word, I picked up the suitcase. Her shouting had faded into meaningless noise as I walked out the door, closing it behind me. Silencing her rant. Back at my grandparents' doorstep, tears streaming down my face, Grandma opened the door, and I collapsed into her arms, sobbing. In the kitchen, I recounted everything through hiccuped breaths. Test results, Mom's affair, Sarah not being Dad's daughter, Mom's harsh words, and her throwing me out. Grandma grew more resolute with each revelation, while Grandpa remained silent, his coffee going cold. When I finished, the silence was intense. "We'll handle this," Grandma said firmly, reaching for the phone. And she did. The next morning during breakfast, Grandma made the call, placing it on speaker for Grandpa to listen. "To Marie, this is Ellen." Grandma's voice was ice cold. "Pack your things. You need to leave the house." Mom's voice crackled through the speaker.
What? What are you talking about?"
"The house belongs to us," Grandma continued. "And you, who betrayed our son, whose," Mom's raised voice echoed, "you've been heartless to our granddaughter, and you have no right to stay there anymore." "It was just once," she screamed. "It was an accident. I love John, I really did. I love Amy too. Please believe me." Grandpa, with anger quivering in his voice, interrupted. "Once is enough. That one time tore our family apart." Mom, now crying, pleaded, "Where will we go?" "What about Sarah's treatment?" Grandma coldly remarked, "We could stop supporting Sarah's treatment. She's not really our granddaughter anyway." My heart stood still for a moment, yet Grandma continued, "But we won't do that, Marie, because we're not cruel like you. Sarah is an innocent child who needs our aid, and we'll keep supporting her treatment. But you must leave and find your place. It's long past time you became independent." The following day, I visited Sarah at the hospital. She appeared even smaller, if possible. Upon my entrance, she weakly smiled and said, "Hey. So, now we know why you can't be my donor. Different dads, who would have guessed, right?" I squeezed her hand and assured, "Nothing's changed between us. You're still my sister and I love you. Grandma and Grandpa will keep aiding your treatment. We'll find a donor, I promise." Her eyes welled with tears. "Really? Even though I'm not truly theirs?" "Really," I interjected. "Family's about love, not just blood, and you're my sister no matter any test." It's been 3 months since the unraveling, though it often feels like years. I've returned to college, focusing on studies and striving for normalcy. Mom remains in the house. Grandma and Grandpa allowed her for Sarah's sake. She needs someone to drive her to dialysis, Grandpa explained when questioned, and someone needs to be with her when she's unwell. Sarah visits the hemodialysis center thrice weekly. It's taxing on her, but she's resilient. We speak on the phone almost daily, and though she never grumbles, I sometimes discern fatigue in her tone. But last week delivered a shift. Sarah called, excitement in her voice for the first time in months. "Amy," she exclaimed, "they found a donor. A man died in an accident and I match his organ. I'm getting a kidney, Amy." She cried joyful tears, and relief washed over me. Finally, after the turmoil, a piece of hopeful news. Nowadays, I arrange visits to see Sarah through our grandparents. She comes to their house, and we enjoy our moments there away from Mom. Grandma makes genuine hot chocolate, while Grandpa's jokes incite Sarah's laughter until her sides ache. Though they aren't Sarah's biological grandparents, they treat her with unparalleled kindness. She's just a child. Grandma chimed when I voiced this. None of this is her doing. They did pull me aside last week after Sarah left. We need a serious conversation, Grandpa began in his study. About our will. I tried to object, but he raised a hand. Understand this. Everything we possess, the house, the savings, all will be yours, Amy. Only you. But Sarah? I started. Sarah isn't our granddaughter, Grandma gently stated. Once it's yours, it'll be your decision to share with her if you wish. I understood they were penalizing Mom, not Sarah. Speaking of Mom, she called me yesterday. I almost ignored it, but felt compelled to answer. Amy, her voice was meek, unsure. Could you help me? Convince your grandparents to let me stay in the house permanently. I know they'd agree if you asked. Please? No. My response was unwavering. I'm still your mother. I've made mistakes. I interrupted. You betrayed Dad, deceived us all, treated me like nothing. You never loved me. That's not true. I ended the call. Someday, forgiveness might come. The sting of betrayal may fade, but not today. Today, I concentrate on Sarah's impending transplant, on my academics, and crafting a life beyond Mom's choices.